How we doing there, boys and girls? Manthieus here, and welcome back to another video. So Dragonflight is only a couple of months away at this point, and people who have got access to the beta will be presented with something like this. You may have seen the test realms in action. The test realms have a whole bunch of vendors for you to play around and test with the professions. But not everybody has access, and so what I wanted to do is start a little mini-series here on YouTube, just showcasing and diving down a little bit deeper into some of the professions. And one of the big features of professions is the spec trees, the specializations for the professions. This is going to practically multiply the different types of professions you can have. Each individual profession often has 3, in some cases 4 different spec trees you can niche into. And it's going to be a little while before you're able to cover everything. You're not necessarily going to be that jack of all trades very quickly. You'll get there eventually, the more you play the game and the more you progress. But at least at the beginning of Dragonflight, you're going to have to make some choices. So we're going to dive in and take a little bit of a look over the next few days and weeks at some, let's call them like profession builds. I want to sort of showcase, if you've got like, you know, the first week or so, you've got 50 knowledge points to spend, where could you spend them and what direction could you go to maximize and fully utilize the professions to their utmost. But before we get too deep, I want to give a big shout out. There's a big shout out I need to give to a few special people, and they are, of course, my patrons. You are the guys that help support me financially. You give me the ability to do what I do here on YouTube and to dedicate as much time to it as I do. So big thank you to you guys. If you want to become a patron and support the channel, the link will be in the description down below. There's a bunch of gold making goodies for you over there. My full TSM profile for retail, my cheat sheet for Dragonflight is there as well, so take a little bit of a look. Thank you if you choose to support. But what I want to do today is I'm going to pick a profession. I thought we'd pick enchanting. Enchanting is quite a cool one. It's actually one of the newer ones. During the alpha cycle, we didn't see enchanting at all. It was the very last profession to show its face. And I know I haven't done much content regarding enchanting. So I thought I'd give enchanting a little bit of love. We tested this a little bit on stream today. We had a bit of the backstory to this is I caught up with a discussion going on in the Discord around this spec tree for enchanting called Insight of the Blue. Now this is more about becoming a master of disenchanting. Less so about making the enchants themselves. That comes in the other spec trees. But this one is more about focusing on disenchanting and just getting more bang for your buck, right? If you're out there leveling or you're running dungeons and you're getting all that spare gear that was once good, now it's trash because you've upgraded it, then being better at disenchanting it's going to give you more materials of which you can do with as you please. Now, of course, the materials we're talking about in Dragonflight. Why is the bags bugged out? Of course the bags are bugged out. There we go. No, it doesn't like it. Of course it doesn't. Okay, here we go. There are 3 main materials you actually care for in Dragonflight from an enchanting perspective. Very similar to how we've always known it. You've got chromatic dust, you've got the vibrant shards, and you've got resonant crystals. With these 3 in hand, you can pretty much make most of the enchants and do most things you want to do with enchanting. But getting access to more of those is going to be critical. And so we came up with this little build that dives aggressively deep into draconic disenchantment. With this maxed out, you get full access to as much disenchanting materials as you can get your hands on. To start with, it gives you the ability to increase your disenchanting potency, gaining a small amount of reagents. I'll give you a little bit of a heads up. Those additional reagents are pretty much always bonus dust. You can then spec in a little bit further and you get the ability to shatter the shards. You can turn the shards into chromatic dust. This is always good if you start to see a surplus and you can do a little bit of a shuffle. And then later on down the lines, when you put all of the points in it, you get as far as to this little node, which gives you the ability to disenchant weapons specifically. This is important, but disenchanting weapons will give you a small chance to acquire additional resonant crystals. And this is the big ticket here. This is the key node that you want to get to. This is going to cost you 50 knowledge points. For reference to those who've not had much chance to play around on the beta, 50 knowledge points is probably possible in the first couple of days if you really know what you're doing. There's a first time craft bonus for nearly every single recipe. So the first time you make it, you gain 1 knowledge point. So if you're leveling up your enchanting in the first couple of days, you should probably be able to, or at least focus on crafting at least 1 of everything. That's probably going to be good for getting you 20, 25, maybe 30 knowledge points. Then meaning you're going to have to go out in the world and gain a few more. But 50 is not an unrealistic expectation to get in the first few days. And this will then mean any spare weapons you come across, you'll be able to disenchant those and get crystals. Now, why am I so focused on crystals, though? Why are we heavily focused on the resonant crystals? Well, for one simple reason, they're going to be hella rare. They're going to be super duper rare in the first week or so of the expansion, for the fact that crystals usually come from disenchanting epic gear. Epic gear is incredibly sought after and incredibly rare at the start of the expansion. You disenchant blue rare gear, you usually get your shards, and all of that uncommon stuff you tend to pick up whilst leveling gives you the dust. Crystals, though, not so much. Who of you out there remembers the first couple of weeks of Shadowlands launch, where resonant crystal, well, what was then eternal crystals, skyrocketed in value as everybody was trying to level enchanting? They skyrocketed in value because you couldn't get them. There was no really reliable sources for epic gear to be disenchanted to get these crystals, and they got really quite expensive. If history repeats itself, which it appears like it might do, being able to put yourself in a position to disenchant spare weapons you come across with the chance to gain crystals gives you a really big advantage in the first few days and weeks of the expansion. I want to just back up this theory ever so quickly that epics might be rare. It was noted the other day as well, if you take a little bit of a look in the dungeon journal, if you select, let's go any of the dungeons, any of the new dungeons, doesn't matter which one you pick, Mythic dungeons at Mythic 0, the gear from them's blue, the gear from them's rare. They've made the decision that the Mythic 0 dungeons and the first 4 bosses on Raid Finder, I believe, are only going to offer rare gear, no epics. This means until we get into until the raid launches or Season 1 really kicks off with Mythic Plus, people's access to epic gear is going to be really, really difficult to come by. And if you've put yourself in a position to make some of these crystals, you might be making bank. So this is the first of my little sort of overviews on the spec trees. We're going to niche down, we're going to dive down really deep, and we're going to try and focus and see what's possible. 50 points, as I said earlier, is not too much of an expectation to be able to achieve in the first few days, the first week of the expansion. And with all of the materials, the crystals being on a region-wide auction house, there's not going to be many people, I believe, that will go this exact route because everybody will want to make the big enchants, right? There is something we should probably point out here. Spending all your 50 points here does mean that your recipes, you're not going to unlock many end game recipes. You know, when you specialize, you know, you take advantage of one thing, but at the cost of something else. And that's what you're going to have to weigh up. We did do a little bit of testing on this on stream today. For reference, I'll give you a little bit of a sneak peek into this. Enchanters can make their own weapons. Possibilities here. We did a little bit of testing and it seems to be quite lucrative to craft your own weapons, to disenchant them to get crystals. Happy days. But that's a little bit of a sneak peek for you guys that made it towards the end of the video anyway. So there we go, boys and girls. There's the first little spec. We'll call this spec. Should we give it a name? I don't know. What do you want to call the name of this build? Leave your comments down below. Top comment will tag it on the name of this build. So I don't know, Crystal Crushers or something. I don't know. But I'll leave it there for today, boys and girls. If you like these sorts of styles of videos, make sure to hit the like button. If you're new around here, consider subscribing. But I've been Manthieus, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace.